Got a notification on Slack about a incoming attack from the warpath, and it looks like Tigga decided to take a swing at me. I did some pretty cheesy stuff the other day. Um, Go back out to the map, and I'll explain it real quick what the strategy was here. So over here on Shard 2, I've been trying to colonize right in Tigga's territory. So of course there's going to be some retribution. But what happened was, so W, alright, here we go. So I need to get this room to RCL 6 in order to get the terminal. Without the terminal, I can't ship in resources effectively to be able to build up an adequate defense to be able to hold off a Tigga attack. So I did some cheese yesterday. You can see the destruction here, but what I did was I used my safe mode to build up some basic defenses, which I thought would be sufficient with some boosted defense. This is my commando unit, and it's got a decent amount of tough and range, but here's the issue. As soon as that safe mode was eliminated, we got our first attack from Tigga. And few issues here. I didn't have enough tough on this guy. You'll see in a second. But this quad formation with the 5th defender, who's sort of floating to stay away from the incoming attack, it was pretty effective. Let me zoom out here. So here's this creep. He moves, moves. First hit. So now he's fairly damaged, and the next heal is not going to be able to deal with all of the incoming damage because there's not enough tough to absorb the new attack. And because of that, see him start to heal up, and then there's a pathing issue I have where he moved right into enemy territory before fully healing, and within a few ticks he was dead. So now no defender. And without that defender, these towers are more or less useless. So wasn't really able to do anything. Let's reverse back here and see if I could have done anything with this guy and the towers. So what I'm curious about is when the unit first gets into range, what does it do? And I don't see any attacks on his units. Oh, there's one. Okay, so this guy attacked the weakest unit, but he didn't do so with the towers assisting him. Not that the towers would have made a ton of difference, but probably about 400 damage from here and about 200 from that one. So 600 more damage would have been pretty significant, but not enough to really turn the tide of battle here. This is catalyzed, so it's tier 3, and there's 17 parts on that one, 5 parts there, so 22 so far, 27, plus another 17. So 27 plus 17, 44 parts times 48 heal per part. That's about 2,000 heal. So this is a very effective formation with not a lot of tough to take incoming damage, but he makes up for that fact with the damage output. So this ranged attack was pretty devastating to this guy. In basically 2 ticks, he was almost able to kill it. And because of some issues with the pathing, it decided to pursue the enemy and eventually kill itself. Anyway, let's speed this up and watch the rest of this battle. So he only has to really make it through this wall, and if he's able to get through a wall, he can pretty easily wipe this room. And without the defenses and the walls, none of the creeps are really able to operate in this room. Let's speed this guy up. There we go. First wall is down. The quad formation is not able to pass through this. I'm not sure if Tigga will change the behavior, but as soon as a two wide wall opened up, the room was basically wiped. And it's interesting, as soon as the towers go away, they sort of break formation and spread out. But he was able to wipe this room. And because of the way safe modes work, you have a 30,000 tick cooldown as the first safe mode ends before you can reactivate a safe mode in the same room. So because of this gap, I needed a new way to deal with defense here. And the strategy was a little cheese, but I have a lot of spare GCL. Back when I was originally playing the game, I had about 50 GCL. So I don't have that many rooms, so I can do things like this where I can claim a room. And because I have it claimed now, I can actually go ahead and activate a safe mode here. So this is the most vulnerable side of the room to the left. So using a safe mode, let's see if I can find it. I'm able to block this room off. So safe mode plus a defender means that he won't be able to traverse through this room without losing his creeps. So that was my strategy overnight, and it was sufficient to get this room up to RCL 6. However, although these passes are a little easier to defend than this one, where there's a little more room for him to bring in his formations, you can see a 2x2 formation is not going to work in this case, and with two defenders placed on these walls, it'd be fairly easy to hit these guys, doing enough damage that he couldn't out-heal me. Ranged heal is only a third as effective as heal from one space away, and because of the number of open squares here, it's just giving me a problem to navigate. Additionally, you got some swamp tiles here. No swamp tiles here, but it is only one block wide. So you can't get enough healers on here to really defend against a melee attack from close range. While over here, he's able to bring in basically as many units as he wants. The other thing that you have to prevent is your attacker from leaving the room. If he's able to leave the room before you can kill the creep, he can just go to the other side of the room, heal up, then come back inside. And because of that, it's just this non-stop battle where he's draining your towers and wasting intense with your creeps, and you're not actually able to prevent the damage done to your walls. So use the safe mode on the room beside, but that's when Tigga changed his strategy. I was able to hit RCL 6, which took most of the night, and now that it's RCL 6, the nice thing is its downgrade timer has increased. So the max downgrade timer now is about 100, I believe it's 120,000. So structure controller, yep, 120,000 ticks. So that's pretty significant, even with a pretty substantial effort. He won't be able to downgrade this controller without a fight, giving me a chance to reclaim this room. However, that's not my only room. And that room there, that RCL 6 room, is completely dependent on the host room in order to build it up. So that's where this attack comes in. This is W14S9, and this is the beginning of the attack. Notifications I got about 3 hours ago, and I'll walk you through what happened during the battle, and then some changes I'm making because of it. So here we go. Speed this up just a little bit. I believe the first squad comes in from the south here. I've got this, I call him the Mason, but what he does is he lays bricks, builds walls. So he's over here fortifying. These walls are 5.8 million, so pretty high. And it's enough that my room's able to start spawning some defense. So the only purpose of walls is to prevent the attacker from breaking through before you're able to spawn active defense to deal with the enemy. The bottom line is that walls alone are not going to defend against a committed and motivated enemy. So luckily this creep was able to make it onto the wall with a little help. I can actually go back here. I want to see when he's actually going towards the wall. So I have an issue right. I had an issue where this creep would go and try to stand right on the wall, ignoring the fact that these creeps are going to do a lot of damage to him. So in the first wave, Tigga was able to knock down the creep by 1900 there, and then the towers fired to give it a little bit of healing to get it onto this rampart. Once it's there, the towers heal him up, and he can start working. And the nice thing is that this Mason unit is able to output. Let's do some calculations here. There's 40 parts in this top bit, and 3/4 of those are work, so 30 parts. And this is catalyzed, so times 2, so 6,000 wall hit points per tick. While the enemy here is able to do 40 per part for a total of looks like 24 parts and 24 parts. So Tigga's damage output is 24 times 2 times 40 for 1920, while my creep is able to repair at 6,000 per tick. So this is Tigga's big complaint on the forums all the time. You'll see him talking about how repair is overpowered, and I agree it is. It does help the defender, but there are other strategies, and you'll see that a little bit later in this attack. So now my code's going to spawn multiple Masons in order to deal with the incoming threat, and it's because it's now in a DEFCON mode. So as soon as my rooms go into DEFCON, they allocate more resources to room defense, and whether it be building up the walls or spawning active defense like ranged attack or melee attack. So let's see what those guys are doing. We still have this problem though where they're taking a ton of damage when they cross that threshold. And Tig is aware of this. His bot's pretty complicated, and it's able to deal with that. Um, so this first wave, not very effective. My creeps are able to out heal him, well, repair the walls faster than he's able to destroy them. So he changes targets. Now let's keep going. Here we start to see a second squad come in. Let's analyze the composition here. Did it change? And we see that it did. So he's actually reduced the amount of tough, and he's put a more ranged on these back units as well. So the amount of heal that you need to counter the towers is, let's pull up the calculator again here. So maximum strength towers is 3,600. Of course, in this room, we're not going to get 3,600 because it's not within 5 spaces. The towers are spread out. There's one up here, a couple on each side here. So I've tried to spread it around this core, and this tower is up here to make it a little more even around the room, because this will do about 600 over here and over here, and he can't even get through here. This is a sort of a average distance. So the average damage the towers can do is pretty consistent across the room. But here's the problem. Because he now has 2 squads, the total heal he has available is pretty substantial. Here he's got, it looks like 35 heal parts. So 35 times the 48 heal per part, 1,600. And he's got 2 of those. Over in this squad, he's got a little bit less heal, but he's got a different attack vector. So the damage of the towers is going to be a little bit less over here than over on this side, where more towers are in range. So he's changed the composition. But my code didn't have, well, I had a bit of code that had been written to sort of block off nearby spaces, but it wasn't working properly. And because of that, these guys were actually pathing through, and you can see them. They just got shredded. So we got this guy right here. Now let's step through, step through, step through. First hit, almost half the creep dead. Second hit, because the towers healed him, he was able to make it onto that rampart. But for some reason, he pathed backwards now, probably because he was out of energy, and the next command would have been go back to storage and gather more. Because of that, he almost died. 100 hit points left, and these other creeps are now taking a good amount of damage. So because of that, basically the best defense that I have here has been eliminated. and I don't think I lose one yet. There's the first loss. And let's go back to see the difference, because the other one had 100 hit points left when it got to the wall, but this one did not. So it looks like he attempted to leave the space, and that caused him to. It looks like he attempted to go backwards, and then all the creeps attacked, killing him. And let's speed this up a little bit. So eventually I lose those wall defenders. Sort of switch targets though, and um, that changes Tigga's strategy again. So now we have a second squad coming in, and composition is looking very similar to this one. Let's speed this guy up. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because Tigga wasn't able to push the room in the first half using just boosted creeps, he's going for this strategy. And it's a pretty complicated one. It involves, well, he didn't actually ship in ops on this one, but his creeps actually move to the room preloaded with this resource called ops. And this is called a power creep. It's a special unit. It has more hit points. Well, not more hit points because it only has 2,600. Oh, never mind. It does have more hit points. It's 1,000 hit points per level of the power creep, plus one base. So level 25, 26,000 hit points. Compare that to a creep here, which only has 5,000. So it's got plenty of hit points to tank damage from towers and things like that, and has abilities. So power creeps. Let's look at some of these abilities. So he's got Generate Ops, which he's going to use to help reduce the burn. He's got Disrupt Spawn, level 5, Disrupt Tower, and Disrupt Terminal, Shield, and then Operate Power Factory. Okay, so he's using this as like an economic creep, except for in wartime. And here he's got Disrupt Tower again, Disrupt Terminal, Disrupt Spawn. So the most damaging one is probably Disrupt Spawn. So here I have a creep that's spawning, and he's using Disrupt Spawn on it. So while this ability is active, that progress on this creep spawning won't progress. So it's still at 62, 62, 62. And it's going to remain this way for over 100 ticks, which becomes an issue because if you can't spawn, you can't spawn defenders. And then using these shield ramparts, he's actually able to protect this healer creep, which is repairing the power creep. So he didn't continue this attack long enough to see the automatic response from other rooms to help deal with this issue, but it is pretty devastating, especially when the walls are this low. With walls only in the 5 to 6 million range, you don't have enough time, especially with the spawns being blocked, to get a good defense going. And that's why you don't see any more masons being spawned to deal with the wall issues, because all these spawns are blocked more or less. So a couple fixes. Let's see. Yep. So my only sort of avenue here was to pop a safe mode so I can fix these issues. But let's go back to my room and you can see some of the stuff I'm working on to fix it. If there's a mason currently spawned, we'll be able to see the simulation I'm doing. Okay. So here I'm simulating a couple attackers. So attacker here and attacker here. And what their range would be. Trying to keep these masons out of that range. Gonna have to do some modifications here because there are some bottlenecks. There's not gonna be a ton of spaces for them to stand, which will become an issue when they need to repair this wall or need to repair like this one or down here, where it's just a tight space. So I'm gonna play with this a little bit more, but the idea is to keep them from traversing into range of those mixed creeps that he had and killing my masons, which will prevent me from upgrading these walls. Other thing I'm going to try to get is these walls above 6.5 to 7 million, which should be possible in the safe mode cooldown, as well as working on being quicker on the active defense. So I have a mode It wasn't activated at the time, but I'm going to set this up for every room to automatically preload the boosts. And what will happen is if there's an attack ongoing, the DEFCON level will raise, and it will trigger um, these boosts to be preloaded, which means that while a melee defender creep or a mason spawning, the boost will already be ready for it ahead of time, so that this unit right here, which manages all the extensions, can focus on filling that. So those are a few of the changes I've made, and I'll probably be playing with room visuals a little bit more in my tutorial series going forward. Um, but we'll see what happens. I mean, bottom line is Screeps is the most interesting when you're actually playing against an active opponent who is making changes, you're making changes, sort of trying to counter each other. Especially with Tigga, he's got a pretty expansive empire, and because of that, he's got a lot of resources behind him. But in the long run of this fight, it seems like there's going to be a lot of issues. One issue here is the price of X resource. So here's my resources on Shard 3, not Shard 3, Shard 2, and you can see my total stockpile, different materials here. And one issue I'm running into is that I don't have enough X to continue production of tier 3 mineral boosts, and this is also affecting Tigga. You could see a lot of discussion on the Slack forums in trading about the basically skyrocketing of prices. Here's let's refresh this guy, but no. We're gonna go over to the market history and we can take a look at that, but I can show you some of the price increases over time. All right, so here we go. Here's my market, and I've been doing a lot of buying, a couple sub tokens, so out of resources currently, but let's take a look at this price of XGHO2. So this is the heal boost, and let me change everything to Shard 2. But here's an example. So if Tigga's got a long-term siege, he's going to have this issue where he's paying 8 credits for a single piece of XGHO2. Now, to boost a 10 part tough times 30 per part, so 300 times 8, he's looking at 2,400 credits per unit. If he's got a quad squad, I mean 10,000 credits just on XGHO2 per wave. And over time, that's going to add up. It looks like, let's see if this is Tigga buying. So not Tigga, it's Taki. Interesting. So Taki and Tigga have fought a lot of skirmishes in the past. Another big requirement is XCHO2 for movement. You got XLHO2 for heal, and price is also increased on that one. But there is quite a bit of volume available on Shard 2. And here's the ranged attack. And volumes lately have been dropping, probably due to the fact that X has now reached a pretty substantial price. We're looking at 0.65 credits per unit of X. And I mean, less than a month ago, this is 15 days ago, the price was only 30% of what it is today. So you're looking at a 200% increase basically in price over 15 days. And that's just going to keep going up, especially with more fighting. So we'll see what happens. I mean, a long war of attrition is going to be really interesting to see the back and forth. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but it will be fun while it lasts.